like to call to order the meeting of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners for October 15, 2013. As always, I'd ask you to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and if you'd join me in prayer. Thank you for all you give us. Thank you for our families, our friends, the joys of living in a beautiful place during a wonderful time of the year. Take care of folks that are having tough times. I single out Dr. Wayne Montgomery, one of our former commissioners. Bless him and his family as they sort out life after their car accident. Bless our friends in elections as voters decide who their leaders will be for the next terms. Thank you most of all for these men and women that sit at this board. These commissioners bring so much energy and effort for the people they represent. It's a joy to be with them and to serve with them. And God, help us to appreciate everything you give us every day, even the little things. Amen. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the Commission, it's the duty of every commissioner to avoid actual and potential conflicts of interest. Does any commissioner know of any potential or actual conflict of interest with respect to any matter coming before us today?
No.
Okay, then we will proceed to public comment. The time limit for public comment to the Commission is 3 minutes. If your time expires, you may leave any questions along with your name, address, phone number, or email with the county manager. Commissioners are not expected to comment on matters during public comment. This is your time to talk to us. Comments should be limited to subjects that are within the jurisdiction of our board and pertain to matters upon which we can act on. Any individual speaking during public comment should address the entire board. Any polling or individual questions to board members is inappropriate. Persons addressing the board are expected to observe the decorum of the chamber and be respectful to everyone in the room, whether you agree with their opinion or not. Any person who willfully interrupts, disturbs, or disrupts the session will be asked to leave the meeting. And this board reserves the right to deny public address on any subject previously presented to the Commission. Any public comment tonight? Mr. Rice, and then we'll have you in the second row, blue shirt next. If you'll tell us who you are, where you're from.
I'm Jerry Rice. I'm from Candler. Hope you know who you are. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Good evening.
Got a concern about CRA. You ever heard that? Acronym for Culture Recreation Authority. I'm concerned that years ago, back in the 80s at least, I brought the attention of the water agreement to the city of Asheville in Buncombe County, and I said, why don't you separate the water and the recreation and do something to where we'd have an independent authority or something of that nature? And there was a whole lot of clamoring going on, so nothing really ever come of it. So it come down to a lawsuit with the water. What's this got to do with CRA? It has a lot to do with it. Even at that point in time, the county commissioners were saying, why don't we work together, the city and the county? At that point in time, there was a lot of hugging necks and patting backs and trying to figure out a way that the city and the county could work together. But now it turned into a lawsuit with the water. Now we come up with a law that says, why don't we form a CRA, Cultural Recreation Authority? Now where are we at? We're divided again. We got the county pushing their muscle, saying we are the CRA. The city don't matter. Thank you, Ms. Jones, for trying to make that point. And as a citizen, I'm telling you, I think it's pretty sorry for a board to claim to be partners with the city and treat them like you're treating them. They deserve a part on the board. They need to be represented on the board. And thank you, Ms. Jones, for doing that, to try to get some leverage for the people of the city. There's 80,000 people, or 87,000 people in the city of Asheville, and the Culture and Recreation Authority means a lot more to them in many ways because of their confined establishment being in the city limits and not having the means that the county people has to get out in the woods and do things and hit the nature trails and do a lot of things. The city folks are in a bind. They need representation, and I would express to you as a board that you figure out how to get a number back on the board of CRA for representation to the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any other gentleman in the blue shirt? Any other public comment tonight? Yes, sir. Mr. Jarrett, we'll have you next after this gentleman.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, commissioners. My name is Edwin Helms. I recently moved up here to Buncombe County. My wife Petra and I purchased a house in Black Oak Drive, which is right out of the city of Asheville city limits, but in Buncombe County. In July, an unfortunate event happened in our neighborhood. During the amount of rainfall that occurred in the summertime, one of the houses in the neighborhood, the lot was unstable. The house was sliding down the hill, closing the road. The guys from the county declared a condemnation of that house. Since then, the road has been closed to the landslide, and those of the folks, including us, which live above the slide, have no access to anything. Mail, garbage, fire trucks. In the meantime, the county was starting the process to condemn the house and take further action to make the road free again, working with engineers from our side, from the association, and resulting in reopening the road. But still, the house is sitting there, from my point, pointing to a public danger. It can slide down any time. I urge you, commissioners, take a look at that house. If you drive down the road, you feel any time this house can come down. There are trees hanging over the street, which pose a danger to every car that drives on that road. Still, I know that the county is working on a solution for that lot, and I understand that from the condemnation order, the county of Buncombe has responsibility to stabilize that lot, clear that lot, eventually remove that house, and from what I would understand that the county public working staff is working on a solution for that. And also I think that's on a closed agenda today with county staff. So I really urge you, county commissioners, please do something about that if it's in your power to do that, because we don't have any mail, we don't have garbage service. Emergency access is kind of limited, and I'm afraid in the winter time, if the cold snap can't come down, the house may shift in 24 hours. It come down to the road next to the next properties. People upside this hill might be disconnected from any public service. So I really urge you to take some action on this behalf, and I hope to hear from you soon. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Nels. Yes, sir, Mr. Jarrett.
General Patton said the best defense was attack, so I'm telling you right up front, I need your help, and I don't need my cell phone on. I thought I turned it off. I need the help of this important, powerful group to help us 4-lane safely. 4-lane is designed by our fine DOT people, Lester Highway. And without your help, I'm an old 85-year-old disabled Korean veteran, but without y'all's help, we will never live to see Lester Highway 4-laned. Country boy, born in a little log cabin down in Madison County, 69-acre farm, Marshall High School, Berea College. Uncle Sam sent me a note. 37 years with Norfolk Southern, and then we come back home and live in a little house out in Leicester. And we joined Mr. Gordon Myers, our former commissioner, Mr. Alan Thornburg, our former commissioner, Mr. Dave Brown, our present commissioner. Sheriff Van Duncan got up in our meeting last Tuesday night, one of the most 5 dangerous highways in Madison County. Our good highway patrol echoed his comments. The Leicester fire chief says no way he can provide service in peak hours, echoed by the West Buncombe fire chief, Mr. Jerry Beeman, said there's no way that he can provide emergency service. We could go on. We had an open house, and our fine DO people took out the roundabouts. It's surprising to me that we have red lights, but we don't need roundabouts. But anyway, and we have some people in our community, a small group, 3 or 4, that I think are being privately funded in opposition. But I have here with me today and I believe I have 7 copies of a petition that is signed by over 600 members of the Leicester community. I don't read very well, I've got 48 seconds, but with the Leicester community, 2,200 cars a day, 1,500 students travel. The DOT said we had 575 accidents in the last 5 years, 245 with injuries, 13 fatalities. Please help us on our highway project. And I'd like to give the commission these copies if I may, please.
We'll take them. You can just leave them. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mr. Jarrett.
Mr. Jarrett. Any other public comment tonight? Yes, ma'am. Front row, red coat.
My name's Amanda Hall, and I live at 156 Black Oak Drive. I was here back in August. I'm here again tonight about the landslide on Black Oak Drive, and I understand this has been a complicated and difficult situation, but I really hope some action will be taken in the very near future. The residents both above and below the slide have been patient and hopeful for months now, and as we stare down the reality of winter, we need some resolution. We have been under the threat of this slide since early July and had the road access cut off July 10th. It is now October 15th. I know everyone on staff and the county commissioners want this situation resolved for everyone's safety, and it's my sincere hope that you can do that today or certainly as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. And I think that is the subject of one of our closed sessions tonight. Thank you. Yes, sir, in green shirt.
Hi, I'm Robert Maluso. I live at 145 Black Oak with my wife Bonnie. And first I'd like to thank Jerry Vihan, Matt Stone, the local fire department. We moved here in June, the very end of June, a week before the slide. Welcome to Asheville, but we do love it here anyway. I got to tell you, what in the middle of a disaster, a neighborhood disaster, everybody in the county just stepped up in a big, big way. The fire department was unbelievable. They made sure we had the limited access we could have to emergency services, and we've done everything we can to this point as a community. We've hired our own engineers who you're also working with, Kessel. We built temporary curbing to stop the water from going down onto the property ourselves one day in the middle of a deluge. So as a community, I think we've really stepped up and done everything we possibly can. But here we are 3 months later. It's winter's coming. My house is heated with propane. And if the slide moves even a few more inches, I'm not going to be able to get my house heated this winter. So it's a big concern for us. And what the other folks on Black Oak have said, I agree with as well. The emergency services, if there's a fire, a fire truck can't get up to our house to put out a big fire. And another concern that hasn't come up is there's no door, there's no front door on 145 Black Oak. That's the house that's sliding. And there hasn't been a door on the house for about probably a month and a half. So who knows what's living in that house or who's living in that house. So it's a big concern of ours, so we would really appreciate it if you could get that onto your agenda and look at it as quickly as you could. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russo. Any other public comment tonight? Yes, sir.
My name is Keith Campbell. I live in the same community, 142 Black Oak, in Buncombe County. On July 6th, a sinkhole and a landslide developed that effectively destroyed the residents of 145 Black Oak, also known as the Eaton property. 4 days later, 2 larger landslides occurred, cutting off the road at 2 points. Initially, local residents abandoned their homes for fear of their safety, as advised by local authorities. For the first 2.5 months after the slide, the residents of the area parked halfway up the mountain and walked the rest of the way up to their homes. For the last month, a narrow bulldozed access way has allowed residents to drive to their homes. The access is too narrow for many vehicles, so residents of the area are not receiving mail, garbage service, delivery service, etc. I'm not measured it, but it would be a very tight squeeze to get a large ambulance through the opening in the slide. The landslides were due to the record amount of rain that we received in early July. According to the geologic reports that I've reviewed, 145 Black Oak was built on a natural ravine on top of fill. Some of the fill was from a previous landslide. 145 Black Oak was a problem waiting to happen. Therefore, the landslides were not a road issue and not a neighborhood issue. It was a lot issue. 145 Black Oak was not properly engineered to withstand the degree of rain we had. The rest of the neighborhood fared well without damage. Black Oak cannot be totally cleared and repaired until the Eaton residence is removed and until the slope above and below the house is stabilized. The residents of Black Oak Drive stand ready to do their part in repairing the road. However, we do not have the financial wherewithal to remove the house and to stabilize the slope. My understanding is that the information necessary to bring this process of removing the house and repairing the slope is ready for the county commissioners to consider. I respectfully request prompt attention to this matter. The residents of Black Oak fear further landslides that pose a risk to the people who live below the slides. The Black Oak neighborhood has been in contact with our state and federal legislators regarding attaining funding to help pay for the needed repairs. We have been told by the office of Senator Martin Nesbitt that Western North Carolina has been designated a disaster area due to the heavy rains and that monies are available to help for needed repairs. Perhaps these funds are available to help remove 145 Black Oak and to stabilize the slope. Throughout this process, the county staff has been most helpful. I would especially like to thank Matt Stone. We also appreciate the meeting that was held soon after the slide that was called for by Mr. Jerry Vehan to discuss the landslide. The City of Asheville has also been very helpful in providing barricades around the sinkhole. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. We're very well aware of Black Oak situation, and thank you for your letters and making sure that we understand. Like, some of us have been out there to see it, so thank you. Any other comments tonight? All right. If not, we will. We have had a request to pull the budget amendment and grant project ordinance and put that into new business. Other than that change, is there a motion to adopt the agenda as we've presented it?
Second.
It's been a motion by Commissioner Frost, a second by Vice Chair Jones. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the amended as the agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Then we will proceed by a 7-0 vote. First matter is we have good news. We have special recognition for Alex Destino, I believe. Is that right? Commissioner Fryer is going to give that one. Alex is a T.C. Robertson student. If you can come on up, and is one of...
No. Yeah.
Okay. Well, those are fighting words.
Uh-oh.
Well, mine, okay,
Just
North
seeing if y'all
Buncombe.
paying attention.
Those are fighting words. And one of 2013's International Baseball Federation's World Cup gold medalist. Congratulations.
Wow.
Commissioner Fires is going to tell us more.
Alex, I'm proud to do this. North Buncombe and our district, from Buncombe County Commissioners regarding in honor of Alex Destino, 2013 IBF World Cup gold medalist. On behalf of the citizens of Buncombe County, this board does hereby express our sincere appreciation, honor, and pride in your accomplishment as a gold medal recipient. We thank you for representing your family, your school, your community, and the county honoring with dignity. We wish you continuous success in all your future goals and plans. The Buncombe County Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. And I don't really have a whole lot to say, but it was a really cool experience, especially being from a smaller part of a state. I mean, North Carolina, where not baseball, but you have the Californias and the Floridas, where it's predominant baseball. It was pretty cool to be able to represent our state on the national team, and especially getting to go over to Taiwan and experiencing that lifestyle for 2 weeks was pretty cool. And then bringing back a gold medal to represent the country was pretty sweet as well. So it was very nice, and it was great to represent such a great place. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mom, if you want to come up, or friends or relatives, this is appropriate. You can come on up for this. Take a picture if you'd like. Are you your parents?
Yeah, get on in there.
Bet you get a good angle there. We're mighty proud of him.
You got to take a picture with him too. Thank you very much.
Great.
Pretty awesome. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you. We're mighty proud, and sorry about the T.C. Roberts mistake. My bad. All right, next we have a proclamation of Susan Roderick Day. Susan, come on up, and Vice Chair Jones is going to talk about this.
Well, this is a woman that needs no introduction. I was thinking about you, Susan, before the meeting started, and I think I can definitively say that there's probably not one other person in this county that has touched as much of its ground and planted so much life than you. And as you've touched so much of our beautiful county, you've also touched so many people and made our community so much cleaner and greener. I mean, I don't even want to think about how much trash you've picked up, or how many flower baskets you've put together, and all the trees. All the trees are everywhere. In the playgrounds, she was able to 10 playgrounds, and she has a way of really engaging other folks in this spirit. Chairman Gant and I were talking about your ability to kind of woo the corporate sector into it and help folks, all of us, understand that this is our community and they wanted to be a part. So all the volunteers, and we're just so grateful for everything you've done. So we have a little proclamation that we want to share with you today, and something else too. So it's my great honor on this day, October 15th, 2013, to declare it Susan Roderick Day. On behalf of all Buncombe County citizens, we take the opportunity of your retirement to express our respect and appreciation for the dedication and commitment that you have shown this community. Your leadership and vision have made a lasting contribution to the lives of our citizens and to the future of our beautiful city and county. A tree will be planted in front of the County Justice Center in your honor.
Wonderful.
It's going to be a sweet gum tree too. Yeah, yeah. So it's a fitting tribute to all the goodness you've given us, and we thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say I had the best job in Buncombe County because I got to work with everybody. And the county commissioners have just been great. Not just this board is great. Commissioner Belcher was out there with me at Pisgah Elementary on one of my bucket list projects. We built a fitness trail at Pisgah Elementary, and he was out there every day working. Nice. So I was really impressed with that. But so many of you have helped, and I want to get to know the newer ones too. I haven't worked with you yet in your communities, but I still want to plant trees, so I'll be out there with you. But I think one of my favorite things about working with the county is your staff. The landfill, solid waste, Parks and Rec. I've been able to work with almost every department you have, but especially Parks and Rec. And we just planted a lot of trees at Lake Julian with David's wife, Charisse, with her Rotary Club, and that was so much fun down there. But that staff at Lake Julian will just do anything they can to help me. So it's a back and forth thing, you know. But there's so much more to do, so I hope you'll keep supporting Asheville Greenworks and all these efforts that the community clubs are doing in the schools, because there's so much more we can do for the environment. We've just started. So thank you very much. And thanks for the tree. I love that.
And Susan, while you're there, this is to our knowledge the first time we've ever honored an individual with a tree planting. Is that right? We tried to figure something special. We're going to have a plaque with your name on it. And as the tree grows, we're not going to try to strangle the key. As the tree grows, we'll expand it out. But you know, the one thing about Susan Roderick, I'll tell you, she has a gift for making people feel good about doing the right thing, be it companies, be it individuals. And I've seen her get so much out of a real limited budget because you care, and it's contagious. And you can see this just from talking to her. She's ready to go again. She's just retired. So, Susan, thank you. You're an icon here.
Thank you.
And I'm so proud to know you. And one of my favorite pictures of Susan Roderick is with Holly Jones when they were doing the YWCA. They had a planting of a tree out there, and they had a blizzard that went through. So you've got these snowflakes that are probably about the size of $50, and here's Susan and Holly and Leah Carpin and a couple other leaders out there putting that tree in the ground in the middle of the snow. So that's one of my favorites of you. So.
Holly worked so hard to add on to the Y, and there wasn't a big budget for landscaping, so we came in and helped with the landscaping, which we did with a lot of your community clubs and people too. So that's a lot of fun.
Sweet.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next is Mr. Catterjohn here. Thank you. Mr. Catterjohn here with Crimestoppers Committee. All right. If not, we'll just have, let's see, Mr. Belcher. No, Mr. Newman has Commissioner Newman has the proclamation. So if you'll go ahead and just read that in. Someone here, yeah. Maybe go to the podium. Somebody will come with you.
Sheriff's,
Someone from the sheriff.
Okay, good. Thank y'all for. Perfect. Y'all come on up and let's. We're glad you're here to accept this proclamation.
Whereas Asheville Buncombe Crimestoppers, a joint collaboration of Buncombe County and the City of Asheville, was established in 1983 and held its first meeting in November of that year. And whereas November 2013 will be the 30th anniversary of Asheville Buncombe Crimestoppers, and whereas since its inception, Asheville Buncombe Crimestoppers has received thousands of tips leading to the apprehension of individuals wanted by law enforcement, the identification and arrest of perpetrators of criminal acts, the recovery of stolen property, and the seizure of unlawful drugs within Buncombe County and the City of Asheville. And whereas the success of Asheville Buncombe Crimestoppers can be attributed to the continued support of the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office and the Asheville Police Department, along with local businesses, community organizations, and concerned citizens. And whereas Buncombe County is committed to maintaining a safe community and encouraging citizens to watch out for each other and to report crimes to the appropriate authorities. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of Commissioners for the County of Buncombe as follows: that this board, on behalf of all Buncombe County citizens, does hereby proclaim November 2013 as Crimestoppers Month in Buncombe County. That this board does hereby extend our sincere thanks to everyone who has made the Asheville-Buncombe Crime Stopper a successful and effective program, and that this proclamation be effective upon its adopted this 15th day of October 2013, signed by David Gant, Chairman of the Buncombe County Commission. So thank you very much for your work and for being with us.
We really appreciate this. Crimestoppers is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year as a formal organization, and it actually existed as an informal organization with Buncombe County Sheriff Tom Morrissey 5 years before that. But the proclamation says about everything. We really appreciate the support of the county, the support of the city, and we keep thinking we're going to stop crime, but there's just a little more to do out there each year. So with your help, I'm sure we'll all pull together and do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll get a update from Mandy Stone about Excellence and Innovation Award for our DSS, Department of Social Services Meeting Garden from the Local Government Federal Credit Union for Excellence in Innovation.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. I think that Judy has a few slides to bring up so you can actually see the garden. When we moved toward an integrated health and human service system, we really focused on how do we improve health outcome for some of our most vulnerable populations. And what research tells us is that individual children who enter the child welfare system are almost 2 times as likely to have bad or unhealthy outcomes as general child population. So we wanted to join together and build a facility that offered parents the opportunity to learn how they can engage in healthy activities with their children, and also the ability for social interaction, to teach hands-on social interaction. So this is a design of a playground that is specific to interaction between a parent and a child. It's built to be all hands-on activities, built-in activities. I want to credit Pat Creighton, who retired from our Child Care Service Department, who did the design features along with Fran Thigpen. Also want to say that when a county undertakes a project like this, it's one of those things that is a very good idea, but it takes work and commitment from all departments. I'd like to thank Greg Israel and Facility Services and Matt Stone and Permits and Inspections for coming together to look at a unique model and say, how can we make that happen on property the county owns? Would also say, and I'm going to show you just a couple more pictures. I don't know if you can see it, but on the far wall and also on the riverbed, you see in the bottom the handwork around the tile was donated. The number of citizens, crafts, individuals who stopped as we were building that garden and said, what are you doing? And can I be part of that? Individuals who built custom birdhouses that hang in there, who donated the tile work or parts of the plants. All are to be thanked for this. This really is a community garden, and it's one of the aspects of my career over 30 years that I'm most proud about. And I'd like to thank the Board of Commissioners, because I think what you allow department heads to do is push out and view things from an integrated or non-traditional perspective, and this is an example. You'll see there's also outdoor seating, a swing, an opportunity, a very safe and comfortable place for parents who aren't with their biological children on a regular basis to have positive interchange. That's, I'm not proud to say that in much of my career as a social worker, many of our visits happened in McDonald's Playland, very unhealthy places. Both in terms of the physical space and the crowds as well as the food choices. So really appreciate the work of my staff in this design as well, and encourage all of you all to visit it. If you walk by the fenced-in area, between the deck and the county administration building, you will hear laughter. It's one of my favorite parts of the day is to walk by and hear that positive energy and activity in that space. And we were one of 2 counties recognized in the category of best practice for health and human services, and one of the awards we're most proud of. And mostly thank you, and thank you to Dr. Green for the ability to do this.
Great. Thank you. Wonderful program.
Ms. Stone, I want to say one of the first questions I asked when I found my place to park as a new commissioner and coming in, I saw that little park over there. And I think I asked Ms. Green or somebody, I want to know what that was. Because, you know, parents interacting with their children is a big deal to me, being a grandfather and through some of the history with my children. But and I loved it. And I'm a supporter of anything like that will bring children together with their parents in something other than a waiting room or a sitting area or somewhere where they're under so much stress, and allows them to spend some quality time together. And so thank you, and well deserved.
One of the handouts that I put in your place is a map that Parks and Rec designed for Health and Human Services that shows all the county parks by school district and their amenities. Social workers use this to encourage families to visit foster families, birth families, adopted families in parks. And we also hand it out to all our food and nutrition clients as well as others who come to our Cox facility. So the partnership with Parks and Rec has been very positive for us.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That was really cool.
All right. Next up, we have Debbie Trumpy is going to talk about the rezoning request from Teresa Beeman. Ms. Trumpy.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Teresa Beeman has applied to rezone tax lot PIN 9618930359, 21 Antique Lane, from R2 Residential District to the R3 Residential District. The property is approximately 0.89 acres and is located south of Cherokee Road in Lower Hominy. This lot was formerly within Asheville's ETJ and was zoned RS4. The property is currently wooded and undeveloped. The surrounding area is comprised of other tracts of undeveloped land and residential development, including single-family site-built and manufactured homes. The R3 zoning district is adjacent to this property on its north and east sides. The Planning Department is recommending approval of the request as the requested zoning is consistent with the Buncombe County Comprehensive Land Use Plan. The 2006 plan update indicates that R3 is suitable for higher density uses and manufactured homes. Given the mix of housing types, which includes manufactured homes, and the adjacent R3 zoning district, the requested zoning would be consistent with the surrounding area. The Planning Board held a public hearing on this application September the 9th. The applicant stated that she has the property on the market and has lost several potential sales because the R2 district does not allow manufactured homes. Ms. Beeman described the other manufactured homes in the area at this meeting. During public comment, 4 people spoke against the rezoning. The speakers were mainly concerned that the lot could be developed into a manufactured home park and that this could devalue their properties. The Planning Board found that the proposed rezoning would be consistent with the land use plan, reasonable, and in the public interest, as the area has a mix of housing types, including manufactured homes, and the R3 zoning district is adjacent to the property. The Planning Board recommended approval of the rezoning to R3 in a 5-to-1 vote. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Any questions from the Commission before we begin our public hearing? Thank you. I have 5:09. We'll start the public hearing. Does any member of the public wish to be heard on this rezoning request? Yes, ma'am. And have lady, then I'll have you next, sir.
Chairman Gant and members of the commission, my name is Teresa Beeman, and I own the property known as 21 Antique Lane, Asheville, Buncombe County. I am here today to ask that you approve the petition I have made to rezone said property from R2 to R3. At present, the subject property is vacant land. This is in an area with mixed housing types, including single-family homes and manufactured housing. This request is consistent with the updated Buncombe County Comprehensive Land Use Plan and would not be detrimental to any of the surrounding landowners. There is a brand-new, double-wide manufactured home across the driveway to the west of the subject property. That home was set up there in the past 2 to 3 months. To the south of the subject tract are 2 other manufactured homes, one modular and one single-wide home. The property has been for sale since last summer, and I have had a number of interested parties. The first question they have asked is whether they could put a manufactured home on the land. When I had to tell them no, they couldn't understand the reasoning because there are already manufactured homes on the adjoining tracts, as well as in several places along the road leading into the property. This is an area of homes valued from approximately $60,000 to $150,000, and placing a recent model manufactured home would not lower the value of any of these existing homes. Based on the foregoing information, I respectfully request that you grant my petition to rezone 21 Antique Lane from R2 to R3. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beeman. Yes, sir. Any other members of the public wish to be heard on this rezoning? Okay, you'll be next, black shirt.
Thank you. My name is George Weber. I live at 60 Daniel Road. I share a property boundary with Miss Beeman. We'd like to see that stay R2 if possible. I know there's R3 around there. We think that R3 would be a downgrade, and also, let me see. Yeah, we think it would be a downgrade, and we think that it would be have a negative impact on our community. Ms. Beeman would still have the density with R2, the same, but she couldn't put a trailer on there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Roger Stevenson, and I own 33 Antique Lane, adjacent to the subject property in question. I would request that you leave the zoning as it is. My concern is that it would devalue the property. Property values have already gone down over the past, probably a couple of years due to the economy and different factors that the county looks at as far as taxation and whatever else figures into the equation. But again, my property, or my concern would be that the value of my property would go down. I don't know of anyone who would want to see the property value of their place go down. I would not have a problem with a modular home going in. I would not have a problem, with a site-built home. But I would request that you keep the zoning as it is to keep mobile homes from being brought in. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Any other members of the public wish to be heard on this request? If not, I will declare the public hearing closed at 5:15. Comments, commissioners, motions?
I just need a point of clarification.
Yes, sir.
As I understand it, Ms. Drummond, at this point, can they or can they not put a double wide modular type on there? Is it only single wide? So what?
Right now, being R2, it would allow a modular or a site built, but not a manufactured home.
Okay, but So a modular or a site built, not a
Yes.
not like a double wide or okay.
That's correct.
Is
Double
there,
wide or single wide would not be allowed.
Is there sewer and water to this property?
Yes.
There is. Okay.
Any other questions while Ms. Trumpy's up?
Comment. I'm familiar with this property in this area, and I believe it would be good for Ms. Beeman. I think she was very, very well presented tonight, very well spoken. I felt like it come from your heart, and there's some I would like for you to be able to sell your property, and I think in keeping with our land use plan and trying to provide more areas that are affordable for affordable housing and not have people think that a mobile home park is going to end up there. And I don't think that would be the case here at all. I'm certainly going to be in favor of this.
While you're up there, what is the potential if there was a mobile home park there? How many could? It's a small lot. So how small?
It is a mobile home park with public sewer on 0.89 acres would allow 6 homes as a maximum. They would also have to meet the road building and spacing requirements, which oftentimes reduces that number that they can fit in.
So if we did that, the potential to allow that could go there?
That would be the maximum allowed as a manufactured home park.
But 6 homes would not be very practical on that piece of property at all, with the amount of roads that would have to be put in there.
They'd have to have road building, and the property gets a little steep, so they'd have to address that as well.
And actually, if you take a look at the map, commissioners, if you look at the map, you'll see some other homes in the area there, and you can get a visual of how difficult it would be to create a park with that many spaces in there.
So realistically, I'm looking at the topo, and there it is steep, or it's hilly. Realistically, I know max would be 6. Realistically, what would the possibility be given the lay of this property?
You'd have to have a professional lay that out
right.
with
Thank you.
The required road building.
Okay. Any other questions? Any comments? Or any motions?
So let me make sure what it would do. Essentially, by voting for this, we allow the ability to put a single wide on the property, but not necessarily by the change from R2 to R3, there could be multiples.
R3 would allow a mobile home park. So when it's changed, rezoned, the applicant is not held to any specific site plan. Anything in that zoning district would be allowed, as long as it met any other requirements that we had.
But we do have requirements that would place restrictions on how they went about placing mobile homes or any other home in there, correct?
That is correct, with stormwater and erosion, anything else that might be applicable.
Are there mobile home parks in the area close by?
Not that I noticed looking at the aerial.
But there are mobile homes around this piece of property, single wide and double wide?
Single wide and double wides in the area.
I'll make a motion whenever the time's right.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
I would like to move this rezoning, and because it is consistent with our land use plan from R2 to R3. There might be some other word I need to say beside consistent, reliable. What are the 3 words? We don't have our attorney here, but let's just for the record say I'm saying them.
Consistent.
Reasonable and in the public interest. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion by Vice Chair Jones, a second by Commissioner Belcher. Is there any discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion by Vice Chair Jones to adopt the rezoning as consistent with the land use plan and what else?
Reasonable in the public
and
interest.
reasonable and within the public interest. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion is adopted 7-0. Thank you. Next up, we have the Economic Development Incentive for Plasti-card. And I believe we're going to have Mr. Creighton tell us about that.
Mr. Chairman, board members, I want to talk to you tonight about an incentive grant for a company called Plasti-card, or PLI. They've been part of our community since 1988. As I understand, the company was started in a house here in the county. So this is one of those that have grown up and grown over the years. They right now currently have right short of 250 employees. They have other branches in the U.S., in Canada, in the Netherlands, and also in Dubai. So this is a company that has grown and grown. What is good about the company is that they make key cards. They make plastic cards. A lot of times when you go to a Marriott or a Hilton, the card that you use is made by Plasti-card. And what's also very unique is that their business has been expanding as you get into the gift cards. You go buy a $25 card to go to Lowe's. Now everybody's got to have a badge to get in security, to get in, to their office or in their company. So that part of their business is also expanded by great amounts. They are expanding here in Asheville. It's a $4.4 million expansion, both in the building and equipment, and adding 42 employees with an average salary of $26,000. With your approval, we're asking tonight to do an incentive grant for $84,000 that will be payable over a period of 3 years. And let me just kind of go into a little bit more about what 42 jobs does with an average salary of $26,000. So, Judy, could you bring up the first slide, please? I think when you look at the direct and indirect and induced effects of these number of jobs is obviously the direct is the salary times the 42 employees gives you over $3 million worth of salary. So this is, I figure this over 3 years simply because our incentive is payable over 3 years. The indirect is $1.4 million. That is all of a sudden the company's expanded. We buy more copy paper. The janitorial service has to add an additional employee because their business is expanding. And then when you look at the induced labor is that all of a sudden now that I've got a job, I may go to Ingalls and instead of spending $100 on groceries this week, I spend $120. So Ingalls also gets additional income, pays additional taxes, and also hires additional employees. So next slide, Judy. So when you take the 42 jobs, when you look at the induced and the indirect effects of that, it ripples through the economy, and all of a sudden there's 65 jobs created. So I think that when you look at this, it ripples through the economy. The 42 jobs is all of a sudden 65. The amount of wages is over $3 million that come into the county, and it's very exciting in the fact that it's a local business that's grown up here and continues to expand. And Jeff Imes is here, that is with PLI. I'd like to ask him to come up, tell him a little bit more about his company, and then we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Creighton. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Imes, and some of you may know me from my years at W.P. Hickman Company as their COO, and I'm pleased to now say that I work at PLI. First, on behalf of Mark Goldberg and Peter Kraus, they both apologize for not being here personally this afternoon. They're both tied up in Board of Directors meetings all this week. On behalf of PLI, I'd like to thank all of you for your support. You've shown PLI over the years. Your support, grants, and general assistance to the Commission and to the EDC and the Chamber of Commerce have helped with our growth in so many ways. As an update, I'm pleased to report that PLI's growth continues at a very rapid pace. The expansion of our existing facility in the Sweeten Creek Industrial Park is nearly complete, and we'll add an additional 24,000 much-needed square feet for added production and storage space. This brings this building to nearly 90,000 square feet. Our purchase and upfitting of the old Rudy's Furniture Building, also in the Sweeten Creek Industrial Park, is likewise nearly complete, and we are now utilizing nearly all of the 44,000 square feet of that building, bringing our total production space to more than 135,000 square feet. PLI currently employs more than 250 people and contributes more than $10 million to the local economy in payroll. Our ability to find, hire, and retain a reliable and effective workforce here in Nashville will continue to be critical to our ongoing growth and success. And I thank you again for this opportunity to speak to you all.
Thank you, Mr. Imes. Any questions for Mr. Imes? Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks. Thank you.
So, like all of our incentives, I'm assuming there are benchmarks that have to be reached in the 3 years. If
That's
they're
right.
not reached for whatever reason, then the additional isn't paid. Is that
That's right.
Okay.
And that's 84,000 total.
Yes, sir. That's payable over 3 years.
Okay.
All righty. Any other questions before we start the public hearing on this? All right. If not, we'll go ahead and get started. I have 527. Any members of the public wish to be heard on the potential incentive for Plasti-card? Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'd have to say I have a member of my family that works there. I won't say who it is, but they certainly are treated well. Can't speak to the wages because they won't tell me. But my question has always been on incentives. Are they making a living wage? And when I say that, are they making a wage that they don't have to depend on social service for support? And I would like to know the number of people that's going to be getting this. These slides that are presented and the outcome in the community, what's the impact? You can make it look as glossy and as pretty as you can be, as pretty as those little shiny cards they make. But the substance of this is people's lives and people's jobs. I'm not interested in what the top employers of the company makes. I'm interested in the grunts, the people that actually does the work, and I'd like to know what the salary range, whether or not that they'll meet that. What is Buncombe County in regards to what they'd have to make to be at a level that they wouldn't have to have social service help? That's what I think we need to look at here.
All right, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to be heard tonight? All right. Mr. Creighton, I'll declare the public hearing closed at 5:30.
I mean, at this point, you know, the average wage on these jobs are $12.50 an hour, and they are required to provide health insurance, which they do. So they do meet, you know, our standards.
Yeah, isn't it 10 with insurance and maybe 11 without? We're
1085 with insurance and 1135 without.
Okay, so they meet that.
Yes, sir. Like I say, this is a company that was started here and has grown up here. I don't think it was mentioned, but understand that they have a capability of making 1 million cards a day. So, and that's, you know, that's, and you got to move those out. I mean, those are jobs that somebody's got to pick them up, somebody's got to distribute them, somebody's got to, you know, get them to the front door or wherever they're being used.
All righty. Any other questions or comments?
Well, the only other comment, the main thing that you said, Chairman, is, you know, this $84,000 is over a 3-year period, and it does not even come into effect until they have the employees in place.
And the $4.4 million in investment is verified by our tax department.
Right, the $4 million, yeah, we're drawing tax money off of it before the 42 employees are there. So, $84,000 with $4 million investment, we're making money overall. Plus, it's putting money into this county. So, I'm for it.
Yeah. John, could you, generally, I think you've answered this, but any incentive we give, before we give a nickel, there are certain guidelines that have to be met and verified. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir. Like I say, the tax department goes out, verifies the investment, and then we require, you know, the paperwork to come in to prove that the employees have been hired and their wages, you know, what those wages are.
And they basically sign an agreement to meet other requirements that we've put up front, and everybody's in agreement before it even comes to us. Isn't that right?
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think I heard a motion from Commissioner Fryer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Commissioner King. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Then the incentive is adopted by a 7-0 vote. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Mr. Imes. Next, we have the closeout of the Scattered Site Rehabilitation Grant, and Donna Cottrell is going to tell us about the closeout. Donna?
It's a mouthful.
Chairman Gant, members of the board, the purpose of this public hearing is to close out the 2010 Community Development Block Grant Scattered Site Housing Grant. We historically have been awarded this every 3 years. This is our 4th cycle of funding. It was $400,000. We contracted with Mountain Housing to administer the housing activities. We received $400,000. We were able to do 2 rehabs, 1 reconstruction, and 10 emergency repairs. Some of the improvements we actually did were roofs, electrical, plumbing, septic. We bring everything up to code, so it's an awesome opportunity for families. This will actually, or this next year coming up, this next cycle, this scattered site is not going to be available. So we're going to be looking for other opportunities through the state to apply for. So we haven't heard about that, what those opportunities will be, but the purpose of this public hearing is to close out what this grant and what we've already done. So.
All right. Any questions of Ms. Cottrell before we get started the public hearing? All right, thank you. Then we'll start. I have 5:33. Is there any member of the public that wishes to be heard on the closeout of the Scattered Site Rehabilitation Grant? Watch out, Jason. I may call you. Standing up. Be careful. Okay. If not, I'll declare the public hearing closed at 5:34. Is there any discussion or comments by the board? Is there a motion to adopt the closeout grant proposal?
So moved.
A motion by Vice Chair Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner King. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Then we will adopt the closeout, and thank you for your good work in keeping up with those numbers and very good projects, Don. Next, we have Mandy Stone to talk to us about the County Manager's Report.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could start, the shutdown has actually had a really big impact on us and in the community. So we've been measuring the impact on the county government, but equally important, if not more important, is the impact that it's having on our citizens, and and potentially could have on our businesses, not just from a direct funding standpoint, but from the leveraged funds that we bring into the community. If you look outside of the human service departments, we have about $3.5 million at risk, which when you hear Mandy's report will not seem like a big number, and we do expect that we'll lose about $750,000 of that. Just watching nationally, we are seeing some companies who have real reservations about continuing to spend, especially those around federal facilities. There are stores, chain stores for the most part, where over half their customers are on some type of government assistance, and we do have some of those chain stores in our community. And we do, as we go forward, we will watch closely. This shutdown is happening at a very critical time for our retail industry. In the next 10 to 12 weeks, way more than half of the retail industry sales will occur because they do around the holidays. It will probably be March before we know the real impact of that, but that impacts counties, municipalities, fire districts, city schools. So while we don't know, we will watch it very closely. But by far the greatest impact is in our human service programs, and Ms. Stone and her staff have been watching that hour to hour, and she is now ready to share the latest information we have on the impact of the shutdown on the human service programs, and it's very sobering.
Thank you, Dr. Green and Chairman and Commissioners. Judy, could you bring up slides, please? I did send to Commissioners late this afternoon a line-by-line analysis, and we'll continue to update that. We're currently participating in conference calls twice a day with the federal and state government, and that's how fluid this situation is. I think when you look at it from a general public perspective, rightly so, the focus is on resolution. When you look at it as a county government in the state of North Carolina, which is a county-administered health and human service system, there are lots of layers to how fluid this situation is. We're equally focused on, once those dollars are freed up, will they be retroactive to October 1st? Will all of the dollars be reauthorized? There's significant funds involved in here, and I'll go through that in detail, that haven't been formally reauthorized in the federal budget in several years, have been in continuation budget. And will we be allowed to use carryover funds, and will the state authorize the use of carryover and emergency state funding? So all of those things make it very fluid, and it's changing, and the formal reports to us are occurring at this point twice a day. I want to spend just a minute on this because these are all the services that are impacted, and if that's difficult to read, I'm going to talk about those. One of the ones I'm going to focus the most on tonight is child care subsidy, emergency assistance, work first, and food assistance. One that's gotten very little public attention is around food assistance, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. What is exempt is Medicaid and Medicare. What as yet has not been impacted because the feds have freed up federal dollars from other sources is child support enforcement. What is impacted in health services is WIC, which you saw a lot of media attention to when North Carolina suspended WIC services. Was the first state in the nation to do that, and then receive federal dollars, emergency dollars, to reinstate that. And also in health, I'm going to talk about that in a little more detail, as women and children's health services and what funds those impact. I would also tell you that and we are a hub of regional public health grants, all of them have been suspended, and all of those employees have been put by the state on furloughs. In addition, in the social work division, children and family services, aging, veteran services, and adult services. I'm going to talk about those in some detail. Again, a slide you've seen more times than you would like to, but I have to begin from that point. It's very significant if you're a county in the state of North Carolina, which is county administered. We're going to focus mostly on the DSS budget because, to be quite frank, that's where your dollars are and where your dollars will be impacted. Is 99% of the services we delivered are mandated by federal and state law. That's significant to you because the current situation on a federal level and how that's playing out in the state does not relieve you of the responsibility to deliver the services. It's simply stopping the flow of the federal dollars to support both the services and, in some cases, the administration of those services. This is a graph of the DSS budget, and the point that I really want to make around this, as you'll see, is 87% of the total DSS budget, which is $400 million, sits in public assistance. The other point I would make is that 70% of the DSS budget is federal money. That's how significant this is. To try to frame that for you going forward, if we assumed responsibility for all the dollars at risk in the current situation, that's $195,000 a day, $5.9 million a month. This is important. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it on the next slide, is because while you look at the total DSS budget, you have to look at the non-county dollars that are leveraged. You have about $29 million in the DSS budget. That leverages an additional $396 million, some of which play out in direct benefits in the community. And I'm going to talk about those from an economic development perspective. The two I want to focus on here, every year the Congressional Budget Office applies a multiplier to public assistance benefits and how they play out in your community, because Medicaid or food assistance goes into your local grocery store, your doctor's offices, or your hospitals. It pays salaries. Those individuals buy houses, they buy groceries, they pay property taxes, so it has a significant impact on your budget. The two programs most that are impacted right now are child care subsidy and food assistance. That has a $123 million direct impact on your local economy. That is not the portion of the service you pay for. That is the $60 million that goes to grocery stores in food assistance this year, and the child care subsidy that goes directly to providers. And I'm happy to send this to you. I apologize. It was late. We literally got off a conference call right as I came downstairs. And I'm happy to answer your questions as we go if that's easier for you. I'm going to talk just a few minutes about WIC because I think WIC's important to talk about. Because the only dollars that were authorized in emergency funds only carry us through October. The good news around WIC is that it is a concrete service and that we had several community partners step up, Ingalls, Eblin, Food Line on a state level, who offered gift cards and assistance to those families in purchasing formula and approved funding. The populations we most worry about in WIC are pregnant women and nursing moms who are impacted in that and who have to have access to healthy foods. Again, while the state did receive emergency federal funds that carry us through October, there are no funds available if this moves on beyond October, which is what that slide says. Sorry for that timing. I want to talk about child care subsidy because this is one that probably weighs most on my mind. If you look at child care subsidy, we administer about $8.9 million in non-Smart Start subsidy a year. The county does. The number of children served are 1,600. So the real impact of this is 1,600 children who would not have access to child care services if these services were suspended. Just so you understand the nature of the need, there's 1,400 children on the wait list, and it takes an average of 15 months to move through that wait list. That's because of significant reductions that have already happened in child care subsidy as a result of the federal budget. I don't have to remind this board, in adopting your FY14 budget, you picked up $2.3 million already in reductions to federal cost in mandated programs. This is on top of that. So I think it's important for you to be aware of that. That only shows us as meeting about 50% of the current need in our community for subsidized child care. What is clear is that future funding is not available. These services are being suspended. Most of the counties in the state have already given notices of termination. What we have received inconsistent messaging on is whether North Carolina can piece together enough funding to hold us through October. We've still not gotten a firm commitment on that. Some counties have moved ahead, giving 10 days termination notice. which is required, although the state has offered a waiver to that requirement on giving providers and families 10 days notice. I'm going to recommend to you today that we have to find a way to fund this going forward until this is resolved, and I'm going to talk about those reasons. And if by any chance we're unable to do that, you can't terminate services to families and providers with no notice, whether anybody offers us a waiver or not. That's just not the ethical or right thing to do. Talk about these details because they may be hard for you to see, and I apologize for that. If you wanted, who gets served in subsidy, or what are really the only people who now get served are considered high-risk populations: children in foster care, children with developmental delays, children with open child protective services cases, are the primary, and children of working low-income parents are really the only populations currently served. If we chose, if your guidance is that we find the money to continue to provide subsidy services, whether it's available in the short term on a federal level or not, I know it can't be sustained in the long term. What I would say to you is if we only do that for those foster children in subsidized care, that'd be $63,000 a month to cover that. $44,000, almost $45,000 for the other children connected to the child welfare system or those children with developmental delays. The total cost of sustaining it in the short term is almost $575,000 a month. And I, who am probably one of your most conservative department heads, is going to argue that's what we need to do in the short term. I'd like for you to consider, from the frame you just heard Mr. Creighton bring you an economic development proposal, that child care centers will close without the subsidy money. What you see at the bottom of your screen is the average revenues that a child care center in North Carolina receives through the subsidy program. So a small center, about $7,000. For those of you in small businesses, think about your business margins if you lost $7,000 a month overnight in revenues. In a medium, $18,000, and in our large centers, $66,000 a month in revenues that would be lost. And as one of my staff pointed out to me, if child care centers close, it's just not subsidized children who are impacted. Those are the same centers private pay parents' children sit in. Those are lost jobs for the child care providers and small businesses that will close in our community. The other, which it's really surprising how little media attention seems to have been built around the detail of what's actually impacted in the federal shutdown. We got notice last Thursday that all cash assistance, that's what you would know in the old days as welfare, is suspended in North Carolina. They'll receive no check after October 1st, those individuals. This is a graph of those individuals who actually receive cash assistance in Buncombe County. And I want to talk a little bit more about the detail of that because I think welfare reformed in 1996. As you saw in that prior slide, you saw us move from almost 8,000 people to about 341 individuals. Almost 70% of those cases are child-only cases, which means that the adult doesn't receive assistance. It's a kin or grandparent caring for a child who receives assistance. The average amount of that cash assistance is $200 a month. It's not a large amount, but if you're a family living on the margin, the loss of that cash will cause additional children to come into the foster care system. And I would remind you the average cost of foster care in the state of North Carolina is $86,000 for a child who enters the foster care system.
Andy, can we go back to the
Sure.
last slide?
Sure.
So I can't read, is it 96 the first year?
96 is the beginning of the dip down when welfare reform was passed.
So basically that's when the government decided that people either had to work or prove they were disabled or else they couldn't get any so-called welfare.
That's correct.
And so we went from how many, 13,000?
We went from about 8,000 to 341
300
cash
people
cases.
getting what used to be known as welfare, because the federal government got their act together and said you got to do one or the other. You got to work, or you got to look for work, or you got to be disabled, or else you don't get anything. And that's the way it's been since 1996.
And we've continued to see those numbers decrease, where really the only cash assistance that we continue to pay out is in those child-only cases for the most part. The average length of time those non-kin individuals receive cash is less than a year. There is a requirement for work, so there is no long-term welfare anymore, and hasn't been for some time.
And there's also not an incentive for people to have. I know there was an old myth about, well, maybe not before 1996, that the more kids you have, the more welfare you get.
That's true. You're actually penalized if you and can't receive your benefit for a prorated period of time if you become pregnant and have an additional child while receiving cash assistance.
So it's actually come full circle. It's like, you just show up and you get it. Now you really have to prove it, and because of that, our numbers are incredibly lower.
They're very low, but I would tell you, for those individuals, they're very high-risk situations, and the loss of that income into their household every month. I mean, they are just now receiving notices that they will not receive cash benefits beginning in November, that there's no cash available, and that their October benefits will be prorated. I want to jump because I know there's a lot to cover. The other piece of the mandate says that we, as of last week, cannot deliver the other workforce services. So as Chairman Gant said, when we stopped investing as a federal and state government in cash assistance, we shifted dollars to job training, one-time emergency assistance, helping people purchase things like steel-toed boots or uniform, vehicle repair so people could get back and forth to work. We were also instructed to cease all workforce employment services effective last Thursday, and that we were instructed counties could not choose to pick up on their own. So we couldn't choose to supplement those from a workforce perspective. For us, we contract, as you all know, most services out that we're not mandated to directly deliver. So that made us, forced us to notify Goodwill of an intent to suspend their contract around employment services. For us, that was one of the probably most troubling pieces of state guidance, because at the same time you're not paying cash assistance, we should be helping people with job placement, and that's one of the components of where we sit right now.
And I just need a quick clarification.
Sure.
So what you're saying is, even if we've been forbidden by the state of North Carolina to supplement this, even on a temporary basis if we wanted to, that this is not in our, and this is a state's thing, because different states are doing it differently.
Different states are handling it different ways, and the state would say that their reasoning is they're trying to identify pots of money that they can use for carry forward and reserves in other program areas, and that Work First is just one they're making a decision to suspend on a state level.
And that was the state, not the federal government.
That's a state decision. States deal with the old welfare different ways. In North Carolina, and I believe that this is just my opinion, that this money is very unlikely to come back. Many states have already moved toward more of a kinship benefit payment versus a cash payment. I believe that's an option North Carolina may look at. I think that could be good in the long run, but I think interrupting this income to this specific population, even for a month, presents challenges. Now, how we are addressing that is we're putting additional dollars and resources in emergency assistance where we can help people with one-time crisis, be that heating or rent, a medical issue, any of those pieces. That's how we're trying to prepare for the impact to those individual families.
But Mandy, how does prohibiting counties from using, if they choose to be, and that's a big question mark, but how does it rationally prohibiting counties from doing that build their reserves for something else? That make,
because they're tied to because they're all matching dollars, and the tie to them is matching dollars in the way that they come down to counties. You could make a decision to enter into a contract with Goodwill to purchase assistance for the general public around employment. You could even instruct me to identify certain poverty or income guidelines to guide that, but you couldn't have a Work First contract because Work First in the county program. And I have been reminded more times in the last 2 days we are an arm of the state government. I want to talk about this one because this one's really, I'm surprised it has gotten no attention. I know you all see the various statistics that say somewhere between 1 in 4 and 1 in 6 Americans receive food stamps. There are no food stamp benefits authorized after November 1st. Either the benefit or the administration of that benefit. The impact for us is we have 20,000 households, almost 60,000 individuals who rely on food assistance. I'd also tell you that $60 million that goes into the local economy, into our food service providers. The monthly average benefit per household is $243,000. What that says to you, and I'm trying to help us because I hope it will be helpful to you to think on daily and monthly basis because we all hope this is short term. The administrative side of that is $241,000, almost $242,000 a month, and the benefit side is $5 million a month. So $5 million that wouldn't go in, that people would not be purchasing food using their benefit cards among our providers, and $242,000 you would not receive in administrative dollars. I would not receive, which means you would not receive. And why that's relevant to you is we are still required to take applications. We are still required to be there, take applications in a timely manner, enter them into the system, and then they will sit in what's called a queue until dollars are available. So it's not as though we have the ability to reduce our staff resources dedicated in these program areas. That's equally true in Work First. If you come in to apply for cash assistance, we're required to take your application and tell you that we can't process it, and it will sit in a queue until benefits are available.
Excuse me.
No, go.
Go ahead.
We're looking at $500,000, $600,000 to carry for a month.
In child care alone.
Alone. This is getting big. But we have to do one other thing too. I looked at the chart beforehand, and the food subsidies and all that's climbing up out of sight. We want to help everybody. Well, and I definitely want to help children. You're talking about grandparents taking care of children that we're giving them money, X amount of dollars per month, cash money. That's good, but we need to be finding the parents to collect that money.
Well, a required part of Work First is a referral to child support.
But a lot of it we don't, from what I understand. They want to, but, you know, Grandpa and Grandma, we're going to give them money whether or not because they're going to take care of this child and save us money overall.
That's right. Grandpa and Grandma would not be the focus of a child support referral. It would be the birth parents. So the grandparents aren't receiving the benefit for themselves.
You're showing me something here that I don't know how we're going to, as a small county, with X amount of dollars, we're going to overcome easily at all. I can see the 500-some thousand that there's areas that we got that we promised other things that we can take away, but to carry us further into debt for this is. I'd rather take us away and try to get through it and see what we get back. Want to help them, but then we got to figure out how we get everybody to try to help themselves in the process.
I would agree with you that I don't think counties assuming any of these in the long term is feasible. I think you'd have to think about, and child care is one of those I'll make this argument on, is not only the financial cost, but the emotional cost to children if you disrupt their care by suspending care until the federal government makes a decision. I'm not asking for guidance that say we become the subsidy of child care. I'm looking for guidance around us trying to piece together the funding to hold it together until we have an idea what's going to happen on the federal level.
I think you've got the guidance of 7 people here on the board are going to have, because this is a big discussion, and I apologize, but we are from different parties. But we're making more sense in what's happening in Washington today between all of them. And, you know, that's whatever's happening, we need to try to figure it out. But the 7 of us, I don't know how I can figure it out and how I will help. But that's, like I said, I cannot say to the taxpayer, I'm going to go up another penny or 2 cents to do this either. But it's like I said, I know there's some money that we've set aside for things that I think that we can probably indefinitely want to help you with. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Mandy, Ms. Stone, can you tell us the impact on the foster care on this? I mean, is that part of this? Is that separate?
I think we lost slides at least on your side, but we're going to begin talking about that. If you look at the area of adult protective services, social service block grant has been suspended for both September and October, and we've been told not to expect those payments to be retroactive. That's $555,000. That's 30% of our total adult protective service budget. And I would tell you, I worry about SSBG, social service block grant funding, in the long run. It's one of those pots of money that has not been reauthorized formally in years. I think this is an area where we may face a ongoing mandate with an additional loss in federal resources in the long term. On the foster care side, and I'm going to get to foster care. I might not go exactly in your order, but this is beginning to talk about it. When I talked about Work First, which really in the new world is TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, there's an additional $2.4 million annually that we receive that funds child welfare services that have been suspended, meaning we will not receive those reimbursements for September and at this point for October. TANF is another federal program that has not formally been reauthorized in years. They've done continuation budgets. But that's your impact in the child welfare side that you're asking about, is about $2.4 million annually. Again, that's an area where we have a mandate, and as we talked about in here before, that mandate is so prescribed in the law. It tells you caseload sizes, social work requirements in terms of their education and experience level, and supervisory ratios. So very little discretion in what we do with that, whether the money comes forward or not. That's about 16.5% of the overall child welfare budget that's impacted by this. Home and Community Block Grant, I want to talk about a few minutes. Home and Community Block Grant, Block Grant, Block Grant, Grant, Block Grant, Block Grant, Block Grant, Block Block Grant, Block Grant, Block Grant, Block Grant, Block 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 and 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 and
I'd like to call the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners meeting back into order. We have been in closed session. Is there a motion to go into open session?
Make a motion.
Motion,
Second.
Commissioner Belcher, second, Commissioner Fryer. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. 7-0 vote. We're in open session. We do not intend to take any action on any matters discussed during our closed session. Therefore, a motion to adjourn would be in order. Is there a motion? Motion, Commissioner Frost. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Fryer. Any discussion of the motion to adjourn? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. 7-0 vote.